Hey, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. I can hear myself. Well, that's a good sign. I think you can hear us. We'll just drop the computer, which apparently doesn't want to work for us. So, hey, welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Chris, go ahead and just cut that thing off. No point in hearing the computer. We are here, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome in. It's a first Sunday edition of Hoopsville. We hope you are enjoying the show. Remember, you can email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can IM us at Hoopsville. Sorry about the intro. We know it's not available. We had our issues, but that's how the system works every time you try something new. Or not even new, old. If you got any questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. You can join us in the chat room as well. Lots of options. You can, and I'm clicking on the chat room now just to make sure we got it up and running. You can also, let's see, IM us at AOL IM, Hoopsville2000. Email us, et cetera, et cetera. We'll try and throw those across the top of the screen whenever possible, and that's just how we'll do it. Hope you had a good couple of days. Well, that's not going to work very well, is it? And et cetera, et cetera. I know you're in the chat room. I know people are there, so please don't be afraid to join us and chat with us. We would love to hear from you whenever and however. You can also email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Interesting. Get that little background noise out of there, at least for us. Don't know if it was there for you. Got lots coming up. We have Augustana's men's basketball coach will join us. Mary Washington's women's basketball coach will join us. So will Birmingham-Southern's basketball coach. We'll also hopefully hear from Rusty Eggen in the Northeast. And let's start off on the phones right away. Our esteemed colleague, Pat Coleman, joins us, editor-in-chief from D3Hoops.com. Pat, welcome to the show for the first time this year.
That's right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Sorry, just distracted. You know how things work fine for us and then they don't? Well, that's how it's happening tonight. So, anyway, we got a lot going on. One person I didn't mention was coming on the show was NCAA Vice President of Division III, Dan Dutcher, somebody you have met and certainly interacted with yourself, coming on to talk a little bit about the hashtag YD3, which kind of, I would say, almost haphazardly kind of occurred over the summer, did it not?
It did. I guess July 1st or sometime in early July, there was a discussion going around. There had been a handful of schools that had announced were exploring joining Division III, including some of them NAIA schools, some of them that are unaffiliated, et cetera. And we had posted a news story about that, sent out a tweet about it, and there was a little bit of reaction, and then someone came back and said, well, why would anyone join Division III? Mm-hmm. So I tweeted that back out, and there was a bunch of discussion around that, and eventually to the point where I slapped a hashtag on it, and YD3 was born, I guess, for lack of a better term. Just taking the conversation that was already out there and putting a little direction around it. And, you know, a lot of people have shared over the last 6 months their stories about, you know, what are the good things about Division III, both on and off, you know, the field, court, ice, etc. And it's been a fascinating conversation that continues to this day, even though you know, it got a big flurry and a lot of publicity and got noticed by the NCAA itself.
Yeah.
Back the first week of July, which was nice. Usually, you know, I think these things kind of take place so far below their radar that it doesn't necessarily reach them. So it was nice to see that they A, noticed the conversation, B, didn't try to horn in and necessarily take ownership of it, and just let it be natural and free flowing, and it's continued. So it's great, and I think a lot of people are getting to tell their little piece of the Division III story that way.
Yeah, certainly. It's been fun to watch since this summer. Petered out a little bit, but I think it always it ebbs and flows. But eventually, people get a chance to hear or see that. If you're on Twitter, again, #YD3, and it's actually a new segment here on Hoopsville, and Dan Dutcher will be our first interviewee of it. It's called the YD3, and it's going to be a little different. It's not just going to be coaches and players and such talking about basketball. It'll be why the certain people chose D3 or what what was in it for them, or what they did to want to make it better for themselves, or why they chose the gamut of stories. We hopefully will find one each week and each Sunday to hear from them. Hey, let's jump quickly over while we have time to talk about the season that is so far. 7 or 8 weeks into it, and I've lost track a little bit here.
Yeah, and we're about to do our 6th top 25, and we take 2 weeks off. So I guess it would be the 8th week.
Yeah, it's 8th week. There we go. Thank you very much. Lots going on. I would almost say it's been kind of quiet on the women's side. Certainly the bottom of the top 25 has been fluid. But the top of it has been pretty much status quo, maybe some moving around here and there. Obviously some games here and there that go not the way people think they will. On the men's side, topsy-turvy is the best way I can describe the season so far. We've seen a lot of undefeated teams we didn't expect, and we certainly have seen a lot of teams take losses we didn't expect, and I think that's caused some topsy-turvy times in D3.
Yeah, to talk about the women's side just for a second, I think that's probably not all that unusual. You know, we often go with multiple unbeaten teams late into the season, and, you know, we saw Amherst at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas. That was just last week, basically, a week and a half ago,
yeah,
right?
It feels like last week still.
And, you know, it's easy to see why they're, you know, getting 21 of the 25 first-place votes. They're an incredible team. They're very well put together. Obviously, they've been well coached as long as Grimacki has been there. So
yeah.
I think that those things will continue. You know, in a lot of cases, the top 5, 6, 8 teams don't lose in Division III women's basketball unless they're playing each other. It just doesn't happen very often. So, or maybe a scholarship program like Stevens Point lost a couple weeks ago, or to something like that. So, yeah, on the men's side though, you know, it was nice actually to have a week where we didn't have to change number one teams, you know, for the first time in a while, and now maybe Middlebury is going to be settling in for this a little while, especially considering that Williams is struggled a little bit. You know, Middlebury. You know, they've had a couple close tests this year. They had a close win at Skidmore.
Yep.
Had a close win at Salem State. And neither of those teams are world beaters. Salem State's 7-6, for example. We saw Skidmore; they're pretty good.
Yeah.
And then they go to College, and they go to Wesleyan. They host Castleton State, and go to Hamilton. And you know, that Middlebury to Hamilton is actually one of the shorter trips for anybody going to Hamilton in the NESCAC. And they host Plattsburgh State, who isn't having a particularly great year. So it could be a while before Middlebury loses. If they lose, you know, it would definitely be considered an upset anytime between now and the February 11th regular season finale at Amherst.
Yeah, I was going to say the other thing, too. You know, Williams loses this weekend. And so the NESCAC certainly up in arms. Augustana loses just last night. Obviously, we'll talk to their coach here in just a few minutes. Virginia Wesleyan loses out of the gate to Salisbury. MIT is looking pretty solid. Emory looks pretty high. It just you got a lot of question marks. But from your vantage point, how much did Vegas help you, and how much did it hurt you?
It hurt me in terms of lack of sleep.
Well, that too.
And I need to be working out a little bit more over the next few weeks to work off the buffet. However, got to see a lot of teams haven't seen before. Some teams that you know, would not necessarily have the opportunity to go out and see Transylvania. You know, I've looked at trying to get to Louisville and Lexington, and it's not an easy trip from here. So it was nice to see them come out and play a couple of pretty good teams. You know, I saw a SCIAC team for the first time in my life in person, so that was good. You know, it was a lot of fun, and I hope we do it again next year without 20 teams. Mm. I mean, I know we'll do it again next year. Yes. I hope we do it without 20 teams. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. We got to meet a lot of people, get to know a lot of coaches, see a lot of styles of play that, you know, maybe we would not necessarily know, you know, what Skidmore basketball is like. Just,
sure.
You know, from reading about it on paper.
Right.
And that's a school we don't necessarily hear from on a particularly frequent basis. So it was nice to see them and get to talk to somebody from all 20 teams. And I thought it went pretty well, and everybody had nice things to say about the tournament. And hey, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly. You can't complain in any way, shape, or form about going to Vegas. Even though I believe I saw all of it for about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the way to and from
To
the
and
airport.
from. Well, and then there was dinner, so 15 minutes. Hey, from your vantage point, what have been the biggest surprises so far in this season?
I think that I think MIT a little bit. I mean, we kind of knew that they were going to be pretty good because they had, not only did they basically have everybody back, but they got a real big piece back as well from injury. When we talked about how Middlebury might not lose for a while, MIT might be in that situation as well. I think that in seasons past, going to WPI is probably going to be a challenge, but that's not till the last regular season game. They struggled a little bit with Springfield at home, and they have to go there the first week of February, so that's another game to keep an eye on. And I think that, Emory right now, Whitewater is a team that's done really well and has, obviously a real tough conference schedule to deal with, but they have Stevens Point out of the way, the road trip to Stevens Point, but they also got a loss at that. So
Yeah.
it is really interesting to see how that and that whole conference plays out because River Falls is obviously capable of being really tough at home. Everybody's capable of being tough at home.
Yeah.
Stevens Point is a tough place to play. Stevens Point is still trying to replace some pieces and get some guys a little more experience. I saw them this week. If you remember seeing Jordan Giordano last year, it would have been basically in a very limited role, and he is doing quite a bit for them. And he's doing, you see a guy who, as a sophomore, comes off the bench and just shoots threes or hits a three here and there. That is actually what still what his game seems to be now that he's playing, upwards of 20 minutes a game, and it translated. He shot really well at River Falls on Wednesday night, so I think that he's grown into that role pretty well, and I think that's a good fit for him. Just a lot of things going on. We didn't know what to make of Hope, for example, at the beginning of the year, and they've only played a handful of Division III opponents, but they're 12-1 so far. They're going to be in position to challenge for a top seed in that region if that region gets a top seed. And I think the North Coast Conference is really interesting this year. Worcester, Wabash, Wittenberg, and Ohio Wesleyan all.
Just to name a few of them.
Right. Those are teams that have all won double-digit games already. And the conference has gotten a little stronger with the addition of DePauw as well.
Yep.
And DePauw is usually a fairly decent team, and they're probably not going to be in contention for a top four seed in that conference.
No, certainly a challenge to say the least in the NCAC. We talked a little bit about that with Lenny Reich on Thursday when we talked the Great Lakes, and certainly that is the one that I keep looking at, going, wow. Usually it's a 1 or 2 horse race. This could be an easily a 4-horse race with anybody coming out of that conference. The only problem is they're going to beat each other up, and welcome to the WIAC. I'm trying to get extra at-large bids. It certainly plays a role. Before we leave you, any thoughts with the weeks ahead?
I think that, I am so much in the moment, to be honest with you, that until I go and sit down and do my ballot later tonight or tomorrow, I don't even necessarily get a good shot to look at what's coming up in the next week. So I could talk to you about it.
But I mean, from what you just are expecting, I mean, this is kind of the ramp up to this to really the meat of the season. And we're right at that crossroads now. We've gotten past the holidays. We've gotten past that first week of January. Now we're starting to see these conferences start to really ramp up in the sense of schedules. Now you're playing your conference opponents. Now we're starting to see those crossover games, or not necessarily crossover, but the opponents we want to see face off with each other. So this is kind of it. After tonight, it's where do you lie?
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a lot of fun, to be honest with you, because even this week, obviously there were a lot of conference games still being played or beginning to be played, but there were a lot of holiday tournaments as well. So we're going to be in a position where it's going to be just a ton of games, and people will eventually get kind of knocked off left and right. That's kind of the way it always happens. It is one of the things that people have been talking more and more about lately is that it's easier to get upset by a conference opponent because conference opponents know you very well
Yes.
And are more capable of picking you off on a night where you're not at 100%, and they're playing a little bit over their heads. A non-conference opponent, might get 1 or 2 games of tape on you. There's not necessarily a burning rivalry, between two teams. So sometimes it's a little harder to lose on an off night in some of those games. But shoot, I think a prime example of that is a matchup that you and I talked about when we were in Vegas last week. Franklin and Marshall against McDaniel. If
F&M
and McDaniel were in different conferences,
yeah,
I would be surprised if F&M lost games like that on the road. But because there's a history, because coaches know each other, because you get to see probably 20 games of video if you wanted to on that team rather than 2 or 3. It makes a huge difference. So conference play is what this is all about, basically, and it's going to be intense.
Yeah, it's certainly that's a game that trips up the Diplomats every single season. So we'll see what happens.
Seems like it, yeah.
Yeah, and it sometimes ends up being the game we all come back to, going, you needed to win that, guys. Hey, well, thanks for joining us. We got to get going because Augustana is our next coach on the board, and of course. We're going to be talking to the NCAA, Dan Dutcher, later, as you mentioned, with the YD3 hashtag as the prominent topic of discussion. So, any final thoughts, though?
No, I'm glad he's going to be on the show. That's fantastic. So I will look forward to the rest of the show.
Yeah, thank you. All right, take care of yourself. We'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
All right. Pat Coleman joining us from D3Hoops.com. Appreciate him doing that. We're going to take a quick break. Unfortunately, no commercials. We apologize for that. Our computer still doesn't want to act up correctly, but we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll talk to Augustana's head basketball coach, Grey Giovanine. We'll be right back after this. And welcome back to Hoopsville. We'll hopefully get Coach Giovanni on here soon. We are having trouble getting a hold of him right now. We'll hopefully hear from him momentarily. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. Join us in the chat room as well, or you can... let's see. How many other things can you do? You can AOL IM us at Hoopsville2000. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Your Twitter account is at D3Hoopsville or #Hoopsville. Lots of options. We'd love to hear from you. Augustana will be coming up here shortly, we hope. Of course, last night taking a tough loss to North Central, 67-62. North Central shot... almost 2/3 of their shots were made in the second half of that one, while the Vikings struggled to about 35-36% from the field for the game. Hopefully we'll talk to him, Coach Giovanni, here shortly about what the struggles were. Rumor has it they struggled against a zone defense and some changes in the team during the break. And there's always changes of teams during breaks. That is nothing new in Division III. But we'll certainly try and figure out what's going on with Augustana. The other thing we'll talk to him hopefully about is why the Midwest only has pretty much 2 teams in the top 25. There's been talk about adding a couple more CCIW teams, whether they deserve it or not. It certainly seems like the entire CCIW may be down a peg, or at least a good majority of it is. We don't have anybody from the Midwestern Conference in the top 25. The only other one in there is Transylvania. And, that's on the edge as well. So, lots to talk about. We'll hopefully hear from him. Coming up as well, Mary Washington's women's basketball coach, Deena Applebury, won her 200th game. So congratulations to her. We'll talk to her about that win. We'll also talk to her about the team that is in the top 25 this year after a season or two of not disappearing, but certainly not being nearly as strong as those Final Four runs that the team had in years past. We'll talk to her about that in the Atlantic region. And how they shape up there. Remember, the Capital Athletic Conference is in the Atlantic on the women's side. It's in the Mid-Atlantic on the men's. So we'll take advantage of that little loophole and talk about Atlantic women's basketball on the Atlantic region as whole, because obviously there's the NJAC in there as well, which makes things pretty difficult. And we'll also talk about coaching in general in a tough area. Of course, coming up, NCAA Division III Vice President Dan Dutcher will join us. We'll talk about YD3 hoops. Or YD3, I should say. And don't forget, email us any questions you may have for coaches or for example, Dan Dutcher. We will try and get those questions answered if we see them in a timely manner. And as well, coming up, we'll talk to Chris Graves, who takes over the Birmingham-Southern team that lost their coach and certainly quite a few players just due to turnover. Of course, this is the first year they're eligible for not only their conference tournament, but also the NCAA tournament. We'll talk to him, who is an assistant coach, about how the team is already and continues to do well. They are off to a terrific start. They are 12-1. Their only loss coming to Center, who seems to be tripping up quite a few teams right now. They defeated Center 72-65. Center also beat Cabrini recently. Center not too bad a team. It is also very tough to play there, and that is where Birmingham-Southern lost to the Colonels. Center 9-4 overall, 3-2 in the conference, but Birmingham-Southern, like I said, on top of the SCAC right now. And we'll talk to Coach Chris Graves about that. We'll talk to him about the South region as well. Obviously, we'll talk about the SCAC and how that all shapes up. They are in the lead in their side with Rhodes at 4-1, 12-1 overall. Austin's also 4-1, ahead of Trinity at 3-1. By the way, we should mention Birmingham-Southern winning today, defeating Rhodes at home. So that is that made the race even. Rhodes had been ahead of them at that. So we'll talk to him about that as well, and hopefully we'll hear from Rusty Eggen, WPISID, with a little update on the Northeast, which is full of teams to talk about, certainly. So we're going to hopefully hear from somebody sometime soon. If you've got any questions, again, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. That is hoopsville2000. Join us in the chat room. I know there's a number of you there. Please ask questions or anything along those lines, comments, whatever you want to do. You can also Twitter us at D3Hoops, at D3Hoopsville, I should say, at D3Hoopsville, or Hoopsville. Or Hoopsville is the pound sign you could try. Any of those will work. Yes, we will talk about the new arena for University of Mary Washington. Yes, of course we'll talk to them about their new arena. I've seen their old arena. Of course I want to talk to them about their new arena. Yeah, right. And we'll go on there and so on and so forth. So interact with us, please. Don't shy away. We would be remiss if this show this show doesn't work without you. Is pretty much the long and the short of this, and we want you involved. Again, lots of upsets that took place, and some non-upsets in the top 25. For example, things were pretty decent for the most part on the men's side of things in the top 25. If you look at it, the only loss was Augustana's last night in the top 5. Williams also lost to Tufts. Tufts, men and women, took down Williams. And so that shouldn't be something that is you shake a stick at. That is a good job by the Tufts team. Stevens Point had a tough week. They lost to River Falls 73-70. And then lost to Eau Claire, or beat Eau Claire 85-74. Interesting enough, the loss for Stevens Point to River Falls, I believe the score was identical for both games. I'm not positive, but I believe the women in River Falls defeated Stevens Point as well, 73-70. So, St. Thomas lost to St. John's. That's an interesting loss by 2. They went on to beat Augsburg by 15, but still nonetheless an interesting loss there. Oswego State lost, though it was Texas Pan American. You can't really knock them too much for that. Buffalo State lost to Buffalo. Really can't knock them for that, though the score was monstrous, 111-59. Wheaton did lose to Illinois Wesleyan, and this is where that CCIW conversation comes into play. Does the CCIW deserve more than one team in the top 25? That win will probably knock Wheaton out of the top 25, but it most likely won't knock Illinois Wesleyan into the top 25. And Transylvania, as I mentioned, they lost to Defiance by 10 at Defiance. That's not a good loss for Transylvania, a team we saw in Vegas. We'll see what happens. And glad everyone can see my ugly mug, as our favorite McDaniel sports information director has pointed out. We appreciate you helping out. By the way, William Patterson, a team in the NJAC I expected a lot of this season. They lost to Montclair State earlier this week by 1 and then defeated Stockton by 2. I don't think that's a good sign for William Patterson. I've seen that Stockton team. They are good, but they're not great. They're not world beaters. I think William Patterson may be in bigger trouble than we thought. They're 11-2 now. Ohio Wesleyan, we talked about the NCAC. They lost to Wittenberg by 2. They had beaten Capital by 11. It's a huge race in the NCAC early on already. Hartwick, team I had finally given a little bit of a nod to in the top 25 because I just felt like I didn't have anybody else left. They lose to Alfred 72-66, so that will give them their first loss of the season. Catholic lost 2 games in landmark conference play at Moravian and at Scranton. So if you're a Cardinals fan, that's got to sting a little bit. Edgewood lost as well twice, one at Whitewater, and then to Milwaukee Engineering. Not good if you're an Edgewood fan. Probably they might lose all of their top 25 votes out of that. Ramapo defeated New Jersey City, a Ramapo squad that we saw and we're debating about how good they really or really were. We saw them in Vegas. That's a good start to the season in the NJAC. They also, got to keep track of that. But again, New Jersey City losing, and so on and so forth. So lots of things there. Salem State, by the way, getting 1 vote in the top 25. They lost twice this week. I kind of doubt anybody's going to give a 7-6 team any more top 25 votes. But that's how it's all shaking out so far, and so as it were, how it's going along here. Again, we're trying to raise Coach Giovanni here on the line. I know Chris is working hard back there. I won't bring up his camera, so you won't have to be embarrassed by how hard he's working. But apparently we got the wrong cell phone number, so I apologize to everybody for me just rambling here. Again, if you have any questions for us, join us in the chat room. There's 11 of you there. You can post as a guest. You can log in, whatever you want to do, but ask a question. I know you're watching. You can also join us on on Twitter. That's Hoopsville 2000 on Twitter. Don't be a stranger there. You can also I got to get rid of that setup. That just does not work, does it? You can also join us on email, hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. Lots of options, and clearly they're all there for the taking. So they're at the top of your screen as well. So don't be a stranger. We would love to hear from you throughout the show. I believe we may have Coach Giovanni on the line, and we're going to probably go right into that once we confirm that and chat with him. I think we do have him on the line. So I'm basically doing 3 things, listening overhead, et cetera, et cetera. Chris, have we got him? We got him. So let's go right to the line and talk Midwest basketball. And Coach Giovanni joins us from the number 3 Augustana men's basketball team. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thanks. Good to be on with you.
I appreciate you taking the time to do so. Of course, tough loss last night. Let's start it there. Tough loss to North Central. Of course, you were I'm trying to describe. I mean, they shot 2 for 3, pretty much for the second half. That's got to be pretty hard to go against. Yeah,
they've got a good group, a great starting 5. They have, each of the last 2 years, I think the Midwest, if not National Freshman of the Year, and Gamble and Raridan, two guys that are now sophomore and juniors and really terrific players. And, co-leagues in our league and returned a good core and have had some injuries, I think, up until now, but had a terrific team and came in here and put one on us.
Yeah, that's got to be the harder part for you. You were at home when this one, losing this one. What is it? I mean, from what I heard from reports, may have had some trouble against the zone defense they threw at you guys. Some other issues. From your vantage point, what went wrong or what did they do right?
Well, yeah, I give them credit. I think they did a good job making some adjustments and basically said, hey, you're not going to get that ball inside, really packed in a tight zone defense, and we weren't able to get the ball inside and really struggled shooting it from the perimeter. In our last home game, we actually set a school record for three-point field goals made in the game. I think we made 15, but just couldn't get it down and weren't able to make some jump shots. And, it's about as simple as that, really. If a couple threes go down, we're feeling pretty good. And as it is, we had a tough home loss, and that makes it tough in the league race when you drop one at home. But we're still an evolving team, I think, that is going to continue to make some strides here over the next few weeks and head towards the postseason, hopefully.
In a game like that, in a team like yours, is it live by the three, die by the three?
No, actually, the thing that's tough for us to swallow a little bit coming out of a game like that is that's not our team at all. We're very much an inside-out team. We're going to get that ball in the paint typically to operate first, and we've been a solid three-point shooting team this year, but that's not the first thought. We're good in transition, and we try to get that thing inside, and then some good things happen, and we just weren't able to get it inside last night, and then didn't shoot it well from the perimeter, which is a tough combination.
Of course, second loss of the season, the other one coming to Wash U earlier by 3, of course, at their place. That's always a tough place to play and a tough team to play. Next up is Illinois Wesleyan, and of course, you mentioned tough loss to take at home. You've got to go on the road to go to IWU with North Central now on top of the league. Illinois Wesleyan kind of technically in second with you. Wheaton, Carthage, and Elmer's tied at one win, one loss apiece. Certainly looks like what the CCIW may have been you guys are on head and shoulders. It's turned into a little bit of a dog fight right off the bat.
Well, I don't think we were ever head and shoulders ahead of anybody. I think the prognosticators may see it that way, but it's a balanced league. It's a tough league, and it's a deep league. And 2 games into the race, we're still just coming out of the starting gate, and we've had a bump in the road, but it's much more of a marathon than a sprint. So an awful lot of things to play out, and a lot of folks like to do it on paper, and like I said, kind of make those predictions and prognosticate. Boy, eventually players got to go on the floor and make plays, and I'm sure it'll be a great race right into the end of February.
Let's talk about your team just a little bit. The first question I have actually comes from an emailer who asks about your 6'9" starting center, Luke Scarlatta, who quit, I should say is their word. I don't want to put any words into this. Over the Christmas break, obviously not playing right now. How much is that impacting the team? What were the reasons Scarlatta decided to step aside?
Well, his comment simply is a personal decision, and that's kind of what we've left it at. So, trying to move forward after losing your starting center, is tough. We, had 2.5 years invested in a guy that was really a key component for us, and so, we've had a lot of different adjustments to make in his absence, just, as all teams do when there's an injury or a departure, or, a sprained ankle along the way. But certainly it changes the complexion of our team. And
sure.
We've moved Kevin Schlitter as a sophomore that was really doing a great job at the junior varsity level. We've moved him into the starting lineup. And, Brandon Coons, who's been a solid front line player for us, is going to play more minutes. Cam Norton, George Dexter, both juniors, logging some more minutes and trying to work one of them into the post position as well. So, tough time to go through that dynamic, but that's part of the game, and all seasons have challenges, and that's just one we've got to meet.
Obviously being led by Bryant Voiles with his 16.5 points, 7.3 rebounds a game, 13 steals certainly helps out, along with Troy Rohr's nearly 11 points, nearly 4 rebounds, of course, handing out 32 assists, along with Brian DeSimone's 50 assists, 7 points. You certainly have a lot of weapons there, but it's interesting that you have to go JV to bring in a starter and such. Is it something that has been tricky to adjust to, or have guys like Voiles and the rest really helped out and in a sense stepped up?
Well, the 3 young men that you just mentioned are 3 captains, 3 seniors, 3 really terrific players and young men, and those guys have done a good job, provided a lot of leadership. But we're like I said, we're in transition. One of the things that happened, we have I mentioned Kevin Schlitter moving in. He had actually played in a number of junior varsity games. When we got to the point where we were looking at a 14-game conference schedule, we realized he only had 12 games left to play because of the 25-game limit rule,
right?
Which is a bad rule because here's a guy that had played in 4 varsity contests, but he'd only played in 17 minutes. And yet, each of those games counted against him. And, unfortunately, I wish it was halves or, in the case of high school, sometimes they have a quarter limit.
Sure.
But the fact is we had to hold him out of our first conference game at Milliken. And so we were trying to move him into the lineup, get him adjusted and going, and weren't able to play him because he's going to have to sit out to 2 games. And so, we're definitely going into last night, we're 11-1, ranked 3rd in the nation, and yet we know internally, well, we've got some real challenges that we're facing, and again, but everybody does, and the guys you mentioned, I think, will lead us through that transition.
Talking to Coach Giovanni here of Augustana, number 3 team in the country right now, 11-2 overall, and obviously a team that is going to have a battle there with Illinois Wesleyan and the like in the CCIW. Let's get out of the CCIW slightly. Let's jump into the region a little bit. Talk about the Midwest region. It's kind of an interesting situation this year. I mean, there's 2 teams in the top 25 right now. There's only 1 team from the CCIW, 2, Wheaton, though they could slide out. Yourself being the other. No team from the MWC is in the top 25. I don't want to say the region's down, certainly, but how do you see the region playing out so far this season, 2 months in?
Well, I don't know the region that well. I don't see so many of those other teams that that would be in there, and I think rankings in Division III are so much more subjective because there isn't the national television viewership that you get to see as many teams. An awful lot of games are being streamed now, which I think is a great thing for fans of Division III. But I think an awful lot of the rankings are based on past performance and maybe reputation and so on. I really haven't gotten a chance to look at the teams outside our league yet. We played a couple teams in the Wisconsin State League, which would be in the West, but I wouldn't say that it's like people that have suggested the CCIW is down this year. Well, that's absurd. I've been in the league. We've had 5 and 6 teams ranked in the top 25, and this year, as you mentioned, right now there's only 2 of us. But this league's as good as it's been in a long time. Wheaton has a terrific group. Illinois Wesleyan playing great basketball right now. We think we've got a good group, and lost at home to a very fine North Central team last night. So I don't think to try to suggest I've got a good handle on that big a group, I think, would be naive.
As far as the CCIW, before we let you go, you do mention Illinois Wesleyan. What makes them so good? What makes Wheaton so good? And who's maybe the team to watch out for that no one's paying attention to?
Well, I thought North Central preseason had a couple of number one votes in the league, and they, returned the core of the co-champions from last year. Certainly, they're formidable. Wesleyan has averaging 80 points a game and out-rebounding their opponents by 10 a game. They've got as good a shooter as there is in the country. And in Zimmer, I think Wheaton has a couple of first-team all-conference caliber players, certainly in Garriott and, Tim McCrary, an all-American player. And they've got great athletes on the perimeter. Carthage starts the season out with a win at Northern Illinois. Well, what does that say about the caliber of Division III versus the bottom of Division I basketball? It's really remarkable, the overlap. Here's a team that's picked fifth in our conference and yet has a win over a Division I team in an exhibition game. So I think Elmhurst is improved this year, has a very good starting five. The consensus is that North Park has as good an athletes as anybody in our league. So, I think our league, and I know that's the league that I'm in, but boy, I think it's really a terrific league again this year.
Very good. Hey, Coach, I appreciate you joining us here on Hoopsville. Obviously a tough loss to North Central, but as you point out, maybe a better team than many expect. Good luck the rest of the way in the CCIW, and as always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are listening tonight?
Well, look forward to connecting with you guys again, hopefully when we're headed into postseason play later on in February and hopefully March.
Yes, well, we always look forward to chatting with yourself and all the like, especially out of the CCIW where we don't get a chance to see them as much here on the East Coast. But thank you, by the way, for all the video streams for everybody.
Yeah. Well, like I said, that's a great addition, I think, to Division III basketball. The folks that are really hardcore and enjoy following have a great chance to do so now.
Definitely. Coach, great for you to join us. Good luck the rest of the way, and try and enjoy the winters out there as well.
Very good.
All right, take care. Coach Giovanni joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. If you have any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. You can join us in the chat room as well. I know there are people there. And Mary Washington, if a fan is in there wondering if they're coming up, yes, they're coming up next. We're going to actually go with this no-break huddle-esque, if you want to call it that. And that's how we're going to get right to our next interviewee, who is joining us from Mary Washington, and that is Coach Deena Applebury from the number 18 ranked Eagles, and now joining the 200 club. Coach Applebury, welcome back to Hoopsville.
Thank you very much for having me.
Certainly impressive, number 200 win. Tell me a little bit first what that's like.
Well, I tell you, I was actually, quite happy with it in terms of I was surprised. I really didn't realize I was coming up that closely to it. I tend to focus a lot more on the losses than I do the wins, but nonetheless, it was, exciting, and, many thanks to all the players that have played for me in the last 9 years.
Yeah. It's been an incredible 9 years for the Eagles. Obviously, you have helped bring that program to where it is now. A couple Final Four runs. A couple of years there where you're kind of into a lull, but it looks like you've brought the team back into the national spotlight again.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, last year we kind of ended on a sour note, and, the kids really, I have 4 seniors this year, and last year, they were really frustrated with the way the season ended. And so, from the, semifinal loss in our conference tournament, they pretty much decided that we need to, stay focused and, no regrets for this season. And that's something that we're, trying to accomplish and take every game just kind of day by day.
12-0 to start off, beat Randolph-Macon, which is down a little bit from years past. Beat a Marymount squad that obviously is down a little bit. You're pretty much, what I'm trying to get at is blowing teams out of the water. 64-48, 75-41. Trying to find a close game here, Coach. Just give me a minute. 52-48 against Christopher Newport. Now that is a pretty good squad. You get the win against them at home, and of course now we're jumping into league play. You have one more game in non-conference play. What's the season been in your mind? Is it been up to par? Is the team better than this?
I think we're doing a pretty good job. I mean, if you look at us in terms of our national ranking statistically defensively, this team is doing a really good job defensively, and so we're limiting some teams that are used to scoring 60 points a game, and we're holding them to 30, 40 points a game. So I think our defense is the key to everything that we're going to be doing, and I'll agree. Some of the teams that we have played, have been down a little bit, but nonetheless, we've made them not close games. So I think in taking care of business. But I just hope that we can stay focused every game, and we have a very good team, non-conference opponent coming up in Ferrum in I guess next week I think it is, and so hopefully they'll challenge us, which I know they will, and hopefully we can come out and play well against them also.
Let's talk about the conference a little bit. The CAC always has a couple teams that are on top, and certainly you expect that. It's been a Marymount, it's been a St. Mary's, it's been somebody along with yourselves or York. Doesn't seem like it's there this year.
Well, I tell you, York is doing a pretty good job. I mean, we're their only loss in conference so far, and I mean, they've got a good team, and they don't go as deep in their bench, I think, as we do, but nonetheless, they have a solid starting lineup for sure. And other than that, I do have to agree with you. I think our conference is down a little bit, but we have some new coaches in the conference, and I think they're going to step things up and get things going. It just may take them a year or two.
Yeah, definitely a lot of new coaches. What's it like to not have to coach against Bill Finney at Marymount anymore?
Well, I tell you, we were always big rivals, and
right.
To be honest with you, to be honest with you, I got to miss it. We were, we're so close in proximity, recruit a lot of the same players. Yep. It's a huge rival for us. We're a huge rival for them, and it still is. Don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit different now. But it was always fun coaching against him because he knew he was going to always have his teams prepared, and that they were, quality opponents year in and year out.
Let's talk about your team just a little bit, being led by Katie Wimmer with nearly 13 points a game, and not to be outdone, Jenna McRae, which is 1/10 of a point behind, at 12.8 points a game. Those are your two big weapons, clearly. What do they bring to the table, and how is the team be able to flourish off of that? Clearly, they're two different types of players.
Well, they are. I mean, they both play the wing spot for us, but nonetheless, they're completely opposite types of players. Being seniors this year and being captains for the last few years, they've really come back, with the mindset of no regrets. Like I said kind of earlier, losing last year and not being able to get an at-large bid and get into the tournament, and just, we started out real slow last year. We picked up a couple early losses, and then we struggled in the CAC tournament, and again lost in the semifinal game by 1 point.
Right.
And just simply not taking care of business day in, day out, and that's been the focus this year. And they've those two, along with our other two seniors, have done a great job of, making sure that our team stays focused and understands that, every game does count. We have to bring it every single night. Doesn't matter who our opponent is, and ultimately that this is it. This is their senior year, so we have to, be prepared every day and get out there and just get after it. So at the end of the season, we won't have any regrets.
Tell us a little bit about players like Carol Dye, Sarah Jones, Sam Partonen. I hope Partenonen. Even others on the team that have certainly played quite a few minutes, maybe don't have the stat line to get the attention maybe they deserve.
Right. Well, I tell you, Sam Partonen, our point guard, she's done a really good job just simply leading the offense. She's lightning quick. She's got great speed on offense and defense, and she just does a good job of handling the ball and getting us into our offense and controlling the tempo. And then some of our post play, some of our post players have really stepped up, especially in the last few games. Our bench has really been, done a good job of putting some points on the board. But ultimately, our post players and Carol Dial, also Abby Diop is starting for us at the 4th spot, and then Aubrey Howard is a freshman that comes in off the bench. Those three have really been doing a good job of mixing it up. And when teams focus on Katie and Jenna and put a lot of guard pressure defensively on them, and maybe even some traps and some different things, it's opened up the paint for us. And so fortunately, we're getting a lot of points now in the lane from some other players, which has been super helpful.
You look at your team: 4 seniors, 2 juniors, a whole mess of freshmen and sophomores. I'd almost say you're in transition. You've got a great senior class here. They can do something maybe for you this year, but you're obviously going to lose that next year. But it looks like you're getting a lot of players who are going to get some experience this year as well.
That's true. That's one thing, I hope to be able to, keep things kind of rolling. You want to have, you always want to have a big senior class, but if it's too big, then sometimes that can have a negative effect in the future. And you're right. I have a lot of sophomores who are getting a lot of minutes, and some of the freshmen are getting some good minutes too. And they're coming along nicely and gelling, and, hopefully, we don't have much of a drop-off in the future.
So what's going to be the secret with the Atlantic region? Obviously, you're grouped in there with the NJAC. You're grouped in there with others like CUNY and Liberty. What's the secret to getting out of this region, putting yourself in a good position to maybe get postseason play? I know we're 2 months into this, and we're 2 months from postseason. But what do you need to do besides internally? What is the secret with this Atlantic region this year?
Well, I tell you, we have to continue to win, bottom line. We have to continue to win, we have to continue to play strong, and we have to prepare ourselves for the future, as far as, getting into the CAC tournament, hopefully into the NCAA tournament. We just have to keep learning and keep growing, keep meshing, just kind of keep working on the things we're doing, get our defensive rotations down a little bit better, make sure we're getting some good ball movement, and then hopefully, like I said, when it comes to the end of the year, we'll be ready to play, and we'll be ready to hopefully, take it into the postseason pretty deeply.
Of course, this year you're playing in a brand new facility, William M. Anderson Center, 2,000 seats. You got new locker rooms. The fans get a new perspective of the game. It is certainly a difference for the University of Mary Washington. I remember the old place. I kind of like the old place, despite the humidity coming from the pool below. But what's it like to be playing at your new location?
Well, the Anderson Center is phenomenal. When I took this position 9 years ago, it was something that was promised to me upon taking the job, and it's been a long wait.
It's a long promise.
It has been, but nonetheless, it's here, and we're super happy with it. It's so completely different than the Goldrick Gymnasium, and it's just something to be proud of, and the girls are, really embracing it and making the most of it.
What's it like from your point of view coaching? It's got to be different to be in a brand new gym that is actually your home gym.
Well, it is. Goldrick Gymnasium, as much as I loved it, as much success as we had in it, and, as many memories as we have in it from past successful teams and whatnot, it's very nice to be in the new facility, and just it's something to be proud of, and just it's when you're bringing recruits on campus, it's not when you walk in. When I used to walk into the gymnasium with recruits, into Goldrick, I should say, with recruits, I would have to say, this is where we play all of our games, because a lot of times early on when I was recruiting, they would say, oh, is this the practice facility?
Huh.
No, this is our gym.
Yeah.
So now coming into the Anderson Center, you don't have to say that. When they walk in, they know this is a brand new facility. It's first class. It's very well put together, and so when they come in, it's just nice to see the smile on their face that they might have an opportunity to play in the facility someday.
Sure. Coach, I appreciate you joining us here on Hoopsville. Congratulations on your team start at 12-0 already. You got Lehman coming up. St. Mary's will give you a test, obviously, on the road. That just makes it hard, period, because you're on the road. Of course, you got Wesley, and then you said the Ferrum game in there mixed in next week, and then you're back into conference play. Obviously, a lot to tackle between now and in the mid to end of February. So clearly, we're just getting started. But congratulations so far on a terrific start. And as always, we give the coach a final word. So any final thoughts you'd like to share with us?
Nope, just thank you guys for all your support for Division III basketball.
Hey, no problem. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming on and being a part of that. And we'll keep an eye on the Eagles and look forward to seeing you down the road.
All right, thanks.
All right, Coach Deena Applebury joining us from Mary Washington. We're going to take a very quick break. On the other side, special guest joining us on our very first YD3 segment. It'll be NCAA Vice President Dan Dutcher. He is Vice President for Division III. We'll talk with him. Email us in the meantime if you have any questions for him or others at Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at Hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. Join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville, or just use the hashtag Hoopsville. So # Hoopsville. Those are your ways to get a hold of us. We're going to take a break. We'll be back in just a few minutes here on Hoopsville. And welcome into Hoopsville. I'm your host, Dave McHugh. Chris Taher in the background. By the way, we do have a camera with Chris. We will show it off later as my camera tries to focus. That is clearly not very well focused. I think it might be time for a new camera. I don't know about you, but this thing for about a couple years has been great, but it has clearly seen better days. I am your host, Dave McHugh. If you got any questions for us, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also IM us at hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. That is hoopsville2000 on your AOL IM. You can join us in the chat room. I know there's some people there. You can also join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Did I cover it all? I think I did. So plenty to get a hold of us by, and no reason you shouldn't try and do it. Remember, Thursday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern live, and then Sunday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern live through the championships in March. In May, wow. That would be a really long basketball season. March, we'll continue all the way through there, and you can get the archives as well. By the way, I think 190 of you have already viewed last Thursday's. That is astronomical for the first show of the year, and I appreciate the support that you have provided as a result. Now to get to our new segment, Why D3. It's pretty much hashtag Why D3. Kind of came up during the summer and has been embraced by everybody, including the NCAA. And so we decided to bring in the NCAA for the first Why D3 segment of Hoopsville's season. And Dan Dutcher, the Vice President of Division III at the NCAA, joins us on the Hoopsville hotline. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening, and good evening to Hoopsville.
Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We certainly appreciate it. In many, many ways. But first and foremost, give everybody a brief idea of your role at the NCAA.
Thanks, Dave. My title is Vice President for Division III. That means my primary responsibilities are to serve as basically the Chief Operating Officer of the division. I work directly with the Division III President's Council and the Division III Management Council. And then I help to coordinate the efforts of all the other staff who work with the other approximately 30 or so other odd committees that support Division III. Those are committees that report to us on issues like financial aid, recruiting, but also include championships. In that realm would include the D3 basketball committee for men and for women.
Clearly, D3 is the biggest of the divisions. D1 and 2, I think, combined don't even come to the total of D3. I'm assuming there's tons of work, plenty of work to be done, et cetera, in the Division III realm.
Indeed, we're actually about 40% of the NCAA's membership. We have 450 schools and another 50 or so conferences, and about 40% of the student athletes who participate in the NCAA are Division III student athletes. We have somewhere, as I said, about 30 or so committees out of the 120 or so committees that make up the NCAA. And I think it's important to note that committee structure is the way in which the NCAA in Division III gets its work done. We're a member organization. We're a very democratic association. It's the role of staff to help support, to help make suggestions, to help lead, if you will. But ultimately, in our association, it's our member institutions through our Institution 1 vote in Division III that make the ultimate policy decisions.
So my first question before we dive into why D3 is why D3 from your point of view?
Well, I think the Division III model is unique. I think it's special. I think the philosophical basis of Division III is extremely sound. You know, in Division III, institutions are not sponsoring sports because they make money. They're not sponsoring sports because they provide public entertainment. And, of course, we all like to see fans in the stands, but the real reason why D3 schools sponsor their intercollegiate athletics programs is because of the educational value that it provides to our student athletes. Ultimately, when all is said and done in Division III, athletics is part of the overall educational program. It's integrated into the broader educational framework in the institution. It's a great model, and I just couldn't be more privileged to work in it and to support it.
It's clearly not a business model either. It's not going to bring in the television ratings. It's not going to bring in the money, though we all wish it would. We'd love to see the CBSs and the ESPNs kind of give it a bigger window, but it's obviously about the student athlete as well and giving them the experience. How hard do you guys work at the NCAA to make the D3 image bigger, as it were?
We're working harder every day. I think that's a great question. Division III's been through a lot in the last 10 or so years. You could argue that we spent the better part of the last decade really trying to determine what we would be about from a rules and a regulatory standpoint. We have a very strong and a very unique philosophy. Some folks argue that maybe our rules didn't match our philosophy. So we sort of have been through three phases of trying to define what we're about. At the 2004 convention, we adopted legislation like elimination of redshirting, cutting back on playing seasons, and adopting the annual financial aid reporting requirements. At the 2006 convention, we adopted legislation to enhance our minimum sports sponsorship requirements and increase what it takes for a school to join Division III. But after those two discussions, we still had a group of institutions that really felt that maybe we had grown too large and too diverse to remain organized into one division. So we engaged in about a 2-year, very challenging, sometimes difficult, but ultimately I think a beneficial process for us that really asked the question of whether Division III should remain together, should we subdivide, should we create a new division. We conducted a membership survey after all those discussions, and about 80% of our institutions said, you know what, we want to stay together as a division, but we need to do a better job in defining who we are and what we're about. And we need to do that not only to our external audiences, but we also need to do a better job of that on campus, to our internal constituents, to our faculty, to our staff, as well as to the media and to the general public. We launched in response to that charge from our President's Council as part of white papers that they published in 2008. We've launched the strategic positioning platform and an identity initiative. We formally launched it at the 2010 convention. We're into the second year of it. And it really is a comprehensive effort on our part to empower our institutions and conferences to better tell the Division III story. We're funding it at about $600,000 a year over the last couple of years, so we're making a significant commitment of our resources. But make no mistake, ultimately the folks who can best tell the D3 story are the folks on D3 campuses and in D3 conferences who are living it every day. They understand it best. They're in the best position to tell that story. It's our role from the national office to help support that storytelling.
So that kind of gets us to why D3? Obviously, it just kind of happened, as Pat Coleman explained earlier tonight, kind of just happened during the middle of the summer as people were discussing, why teams would go to Division III, or schools, I should say, or even why they would not go to Division III, whatever the case may be. And one thing I found very interesting and unique was the NCAA kind of embraced that, took on that hashtag moniker and wanted to see what that was all about, and what has it meant to you?
To me, it's been a really exciting initiative. I've embraced it. To be frank with you, probably I've only been involved in the Twitter world for maybe about a year or so. But it really helped to bring home for me an example of how new media presents such a exciting and powerful potential platform for Division III to tell its story. As you mentioned earlier on in the introduction, we just don't get the kind of interest from the traditional mainstream broadcast media, if you will. Traditionally, we've gotten some decent support from newspapers, but the newspaper industry is evolving, and it's to some extent, unfortunately, it's fading away in many instances. New media is a perfect opportunity. It's a perfect platform for us in Division III to be able to tell our story. So the web, for example, the whole D3sports.com family, including Hoopsville, Twitter as a perfect example of ways in which we can take advantage of new media to tell our story in a way that we just never would have been able to do using traditional broadcast media.
Has it been able to give you guys a better sense of what's going on around the country?
You know, I can tell you from a personal perspective, it has for me. I've subscribed probably to about 150 Twitter feeds. I have somewhere around 120 or so followers, and those numbers don't really mean a whole lot. But that they really help me to have an opportunity to track what's going on in D3 institutions and D3 conferences. And I've really been impressed at the way in which folks have taken to new media, and they're using it to, I think, a really good advantage. I can tell you a key partner in these discussions has been COSIDA and our D3 sports information directors. Just so happens when you turn the clock back a couple years when we were beginning to develop the D3 Identity Initiative, it just so happens that COSIDA reached out because they were interested in how they could perform more of a strategic role in the sports information business. They wanted to become more than just the quote-unquote stats guys, and the timing couldn't have been better. So we've been working with COSIDA to help tell our story. We've given them opportunities to tell their story, and I think the Twitter universe has been a really effective way in which we can get that done. And I really enjoyed the YD3 hashtag, and it's really given us an opportunity to tell a story. Let me give you another couple of examples where this has really, I think, been put to an effective use. Part of what we've tried to accomplish, again, with the D3 Identity Initiative is to get D3 constituents to better tell the D3 story in their communities. We've probably had a dozen or so D3 presidents over the past 6 months that have taken us up on that offer, and they've drafted editorials and published those in their local papers. I love that. I've taken those editorials and retweeted them with the YD3 hashtag, and they've gotten a second and third life on their own. I think that's a great example of how you can use the strong principles that are under YD3 and new media to advantage to help tell our story.
Speaking of new media, somebody has just tweeted to Jay Billis that you're on this show right now. So it'd be nice if Jay Billis tuned in to listen to the show. If you have any questions for us, by the way, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. IM us at hoopsville2000 on your area while I am. Sorry, I got to go through all the media options here. Twitter is at D3Hoopsville or #Hoopsville. Facebook.com/Hoopsville. D3Hoopsville.com. And, of course, #YD3 on your Twitter as well. Talking to Dan Dutcher here, Vice President for Division III. At the NCAA, let's talk about it on a little bit more of a basketball point of view, since we are a basketball show. And I don't want to take too much of your time. But on a basketball point of view, how have you seen things change? What is it about Division III that you appreciate on the basketball side of things versus Division I and Division II?
You know, again, I think each division is different. Each division has its strengths. I'd like to say when it comes to D3 and the strength of the D3 model, you really need to focus on the fact that our participants in D3 are doing it for the love of the game. They're not getting an athletic scholarship. They're out there. They're out there working hard every day in practice. They're out there giving their all on the playing field for their institution, and because they love the game. To me, there's a purity in that I think is something we should all be proud of in D3. And Dave, I don't know to what extent your folks may have been tracking on what I think is really kind of an exciting initiative that's coming out of Washington College, but there's a website that is kurtcorner.com, KURTCORNAR.com. A guy named Kurt Kalaja has posted a series of videos following the Washington College basketball team this year. I'm not sure if I've seen many videos that more effectively capture the essence of what the D3 student-athlete experience is about.
You're kind of previewing who my next, or at least near future, YD3 guest was going to be. Very well done.
Fabulous.
We're here in Baltimore, so we certainly know what the efforts going on in Washington College. I know their SID quite well, so we've gotten in touch. But you're right. I mean, it's little things like that have certainly embraced it. On the flip side of that, you got Salem, Virginia, that certainly does a pretty good job. And I'll admit my bias here, and this year will be my 12th season there, of a pretty good championship weekend for the men's side. On the women's side, it's moved around, but it certainly has done well at Hope. It has done well at Illinois Wesleyan. It is going back to Hope. What is it about those two ideas? For the men, it's been one location for numerous years. For women, it's been rotating. That has worked, and what hasn't worked? And what are you guys trying to do to make it even better for D3 students?
You know, it's a good question. Those are the kinds of decisions that we rely on our respective sports committees to give us guidance on. So the men's sports committee or the women's sports committee, they really ultimately make the recommendations to the championships committee on the preferred location for our finals. I've been to several of those locations. I've been to Springfield as well as Hope for the women. I've been to Illinois Wesleyan. I've been to Salem several times. I'm going back this spring.
Good.
I think ultimately it really championships need to be judged by the quality of the student-athlete experience. At a rotating site like with the women, typically it's on campus. That's a unique atmosphere. You feel that campus support. You feel like you have a sort of a more homey campus atmosphere that still, though, provides a great competitive experience for the participants. You look at Salem, for example. I don't know if there's anybody that knows and delivers on a quality D3 championships experience better than our friends do in Salem. We've been there with the Stag Ball, and it's a good reason why we're still there. We've been there with the men's championship, and there's still good reason why we're there. They understand how to put on a first-class championship experience in a way that our committees just feel they don't feel it can be surpassed, and we trust their judgment in that regard. So you get a different feel when you're on campus versus when you're in the Salem Civic Center, but I think they're both different flavors, if you will, of the same theme, and that is how to deliver a first-class championships experience for our student-athletes.
One of the things that I would say student-athletes, coaches, even ourselves in the coverage of Division III get frustrated with sometimes is the way the championships are made up, the brackets per se. And I know there's always work on that, and this is not a time to begrade any work. It is hard work. I have talked to committee members. It is difficult work, especially with any type of limitations that are on them. Of course, apples and oranges when you go to the D1 tournament and you're sending a team from New England all the way to the West Coast to play a game. But it seems to me that there are more efforts to try and diversify the brackets. There's more efforts to try and even off the playing field and get as traditional a bracket as there is possible within Division III out there. Is there still more work to be done from your point of view? Do you think the trend is in the right direction? And what resources are being put in place to maybe continue to make it better?
I think we would be. I don't think we would be living up to our responsibilities if we weren't sort of continually reviewing how we do what we do and seeing if there are ways to make it better. I know, for example, over the last year or so, the Championships Committee has been undergoing a comprehensive review of our regional assignments, and in all sports, not just in basketball, but trying to be sure that our regional assignments are appropriate. The right schools are in the right regions. We don't have an unlimited budget in Division III. Believe me, I wish we did.
We all do.
Exactly. We have that set budget allocation, so we've had to adopt some championship bracketing policies and procedures that are a little more restrictive and try to keep our costs down. We try to minimize flights, for example, as much as we can. Ways in which ultimately we might be able to have a little more flexibility while retaining those principles because of the good fiscal sense that they make. Those are issues that we continue to ask our sports committees and our championships committee to review. But ultimately, the kinds of principles where you look at and give ultimate emphasis to regional and conference competition, those are really at the heart of the D3 selection principles. Those are consistent with our philosophy statement. I don't think we'll ever go away from those, but how you implement those principles, what are the interpretations of those principles that may give us a little more flexibility, those are issues that continue to be under review, and I think they'll always be under some form of review.
I certainly don't want to take any more of your time. I could talk to you for a long time about this topic, Division III in general, basketball in general, why D3 in general, but obviously we still have more guests to get to on the show, and of course you have the rest of your life to get back to. We don't want to take all your time, but I would love to chat with you sometime down the road again on the show. Maybe when you're in Salem, we'll get together and do an interview and down there. That'd be fun. But in the meantime, any final thoughts? We always give the guests the final word. So any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share with those who are listening live or on the archive here on this?
Well, first, David, it's been a pleasure. I'd love to do it again, and I would just encourage those of you out there in Hoopsville, don't hesitate to actively tell the D3 story, be a D3 supporter. Be sure that folks understand that there are more institutions out there than the institutions that they see covered on mainstream media. Be sure to remind folks what D3 is about, what it stands for, and the good work that's being done on our D3 campuses every day.
Very good. Well put and well said. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time to join us, and we will hopefully see you in Salem and chat with you then.
It's been my pleasure, Dave. Thanks again.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Dan Dutcher, Vice President for Division III in the NCAA, joining us here on Hoopsville. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. We're a little bit over time here, so we got to get to a quick break. And on the other side, we'll talk to Birmingham-Southern's men's basketball coach about the South region and about the SCAC and about his first year at the head of the team. We'll talk to him in just a few minutes. Sorry, no commercial breaks. We got issues with the computers. It's one of those things. We'll work it out by Thursday, but you're listening to Hoopsville. Presented by D3Hoops.com. You can email us at hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. AOLIM is Hoopsville2000. You can Twitter us at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Don't forget the hashtag YD3. And, of course, join us at Facebook at Facebook.com/Hoopsville. We'll be back in just a minute or two. And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Dave McHugh alongside Chris Taher, the producer extraordinaire in the background. We actually have a camera of Chris this year, believe it or not. Just for giggles, let's show it off to the crowd, ladies and gentlemen. There he is. There is Chris Taher. He's got his own camera now. Very nice, wearing the McDaniel sweatshirt, his alma mater, of course. Props to you. Our theme this year is to try and wear D3-related gear in the studio. Last week, or on Thursday, I wore my Goucher shirt because clearly Goucher's my alma mater, but they also helped keep this show on the air when we lost our original broadcaster. Tonight, I'm wearing the D3Sports.com shirt. So, you know, you got to do what you got to do. Well, when you have an NCAA Vice President on, you got to wear the nice collared shirt. We'll break out the T-shirts, I promise you, in the weeks ahead. We got plenty of those. Just schools that have given us material down the road. Chris, he probably bought that. It's an Under Armour sweatshirt. I can see from that, and it's McDaniel, so clearly he's a little biased. But Chris Tarr, everybody. By the way, when School of the Week, I've already set up a special little thing for you, Chris. You're going to be in there. You can be seen. You're going to be seen with me. Everything's going to work. But he tirelessly works back there on the cameras. Obviously, we got to readjust his camera slightly, but we will we will work on that down the road. In the meantime, we should probably get to our next segment, and that is bringing in Coach Chris Graves from the number 22 Birmingham-Southern men's basketball team. Coach, welcome to the show. Welcome to Hoopsville, and I hope you are doing well.
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
No, well, thank you for joining us. Birmingham-Southern, let's see, 12-1, 4-1 in the conference. You one loss being the center, those pesky Colonels, at center, of course, and a tough one, 7-point loss there. But let's get to the meat and for the Southerners, the grits of it. And I say grits because I love grits. You're the first-year head coach after being assistant coach for the past 3, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Head coach moved on, lost a ton of seniors, and now for the first time getting to be able to be eligible for postseason play. This is a whole nother ball of wax for the Panthers, is it not?
It is. It's an exciting time in our program. I think it's something that Coach Cole, before he moved on, and as a program we've been building towards, and we don't have too many seniors, but we do have a group of really experienced players that are playing, that have been in tough ball games, and I just feel like we have a veteran bunch.
It has certainly played to your benefit, I'll admit. What has been the key so far this season from your point of view?
I think the key for our team to this point has been we've got a collection of a lot of really good players that shoot the ball well. For those that are listening that hadn't seen us, we play 10 guys, so a whole lot of minutes. We play more minutes for our guys than most people do. We push it up and down. We really shoot a lot of threes, and we've got a good, strong inside game. So we've just got a balanced group that has been through conference battles before, and I think we've just got a good overall team right now.
That overall team being led by Jason Jonas at 13.1 points a game. You're getting 12.5 out of Kevin Garias. I hope I said that right. Or Kegaris?
Kegaris, yeah.
I had a 50-50 chance. And Zach Richards at 11.2, Caleb Lee at 9.2. 2 of those guys are seniors. 2 of those guys are juniors. Of course, you get some freshman contributions and guys like Larry Thomas. And you point out minutes. I have to go down, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 until I get to a guy who hasn't played double digits on your team, on average.
Yeah, that's correct.
So tell us a little bit about Jonas and the rest of this gang that is giving you guys so much success this year.
Jonas, Kegaris, Larry Thomas, and a kid, Nick Murphy, all really, really shoot the ball well. They as well as anybody in our league, and we feel like anybody in the country. It really has helped us out. The development of Zach Richards and Caleb Lee are both big inside guys who can score and draw some attention down and get us power plays near the block, and that's really helped develop our team. And we've got an outstanding returning all-conference point guard in Blaze White. So, we really, as you said, have a whole team effort. I don't know that we in particular have one guy that you can say if you stop him, they're done. We have the opportunity for a lot of guys to make plays, and to this point in the season, they've made plays.
Clearly made plays to 12-1 so far this season. You've beaten some decent squads. But do you think the biggest challenge is ahead? I mean, you've got the Trinity Texases still to play. You've got your entire conference schedule to play, even though you're 4-1.
Yeah, I do think for us, the biggest part of the schedule certainly is ahead. Traveling, having a trip out to Texas this upcoming week, and then following that 2 weeks later with a trip to Colorado and Arkansas. This month for us is a grind, and it's going to be a challenge and a test for us. But I think we have the kind of team who has a chance to go out there and be successful because we're multidimensional and can score inside and out, and can just do some things that help you win on the road.
Obviously, with a win today against Rhodes, 70-48, you keep your home win streak alive. And Rhodes has been this kind of pesky team, I would say, until that win, if I'm not mistaken. They were on top of the conference. Now you're tied with them on your side of the conference, I should say, at 4-1 each. Center right behind it, 3-2. Swanee 2-3. Oglethorpe 1-4, and University of Dallas 1-4. Clearly, those are your priority teams. But on the flip side, you got Austin and Trinity and Colorado College and the rest that are going to be a little bit of a stubborn set of games to play as well. How you've been assistant coach, now you're head coach. How are you mixing in the travel and getting your team ready for those away games?
Well, I think that again we have the benefit of having guys. We play 10 guys, but 9 of those guys have played. We've kept a similar style, so 9 of those 10 guys have played double-digit minutes since they've gotten on campus, and so they understand the routine that we get into. They know how we have to practice and how we have to prepare, and just how important stuff like scouting reports and teams' personnel and tendencies becomes when you get into conference play. Because certainly we're not going to trick them, and they're not going to trick us. We're gonna have to go out and execute our game plan better than they execute theirs in order to have a chance to win on the road. Because it's tough to win on the road in college basketball.
Interestingly enough, we point out 3 years as assistant, you take on as head coach. What was your thinking of taking on this team as a head coach?
Well, I thought that I was following up a really good basketball coach. Mitch Cole had a great offensive mind and had a really good system in place. And so what we've tried to do is, for the most part, keep that system in place with, the caveat that it probably is a little bit more my personality and stuff that I thought was important for us to do. But they've had such a strong program at Birmingham-Southern over the last 30 years that much of the stuff we've been doing for that length of time. If you put Birmingham-Southern statistically over the last 30 years is one of the winningest college basketball programs in the country. So, for that time, we've really just tried to continue what they have going. Such a proud tradition. So many great players have come through this program that I just, as a head coach, feel fortunate every day I get to walk in the door and be the head coach of the program.
What is the secret? Let me change that up a little bit. The South region is enormous.
Yeah.
We split it up on Hoopsville because half the teams are playing on the Thursday night when we want to have them on, and half of them are playing on Sundays or traveling when we want to have them on. We're lucky that you guys were at home tonight so we could get you on. Knowing that in the years that you've had as assistant coach in this division, in this region, what are the challenges of the South region? How do you have to prepare when you look at your schedule? Not only because conference play takes up so much of it, but what do you have to prepare for, and what do you have to always be thinking about when it comes to the South region?
Well, I think right now, for this year, we really want to take all the questions out of it. So we're focusing all our energies on trying to prepare to the place where we can win our conference tournament, which is an automatic bid, obviously. And as we look to the future, as our league splits next year, I think our biggest challenge is to try to broaden our schedule to a point where we can get a good taste of the teams that are, as you said, from such a diverse area, to where some of the leagues, it's hard to even get non-conference games against them because they only have 2 or 4 non-conference games that they can schedule. And to this point, we hadn't been high on our priority list to get us in there in one of those 2 games. But we're really just trying to find the best teams that we can play and get our team ready. One of the things that we thought as we moved to this division is that we had a chance to compete on a national level. We've got great facilities and a great college, great basketball tradition, and so we want to go play anybody we can play in order to prepare ourselves to be a team that can compete in the national tournament year after year.
Obviously, it's still the 4th or 5th year that you guys have been in Division III. You're still kind of, obviously the postseason is an advantage now. Do you think it's attainable for you guys? Do you think you can win the automatic qualifier or even get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament this year?
I think it would be fair to say that we've got a shot. And in the last 2 years, when we have not been eligible to compete in the conference tournament, we've either had a share of or outright won the regular season conference championship in the
Right.
NCAA. So I don't think that that's outside the realm of possibility. Now, I think there are some good teams. Greg Mason at center does an outstanding job.
Yeah.
Trinity, they really are so. They play such great defense. They're hard to score on. They grind it out. And even the Rhodes team we played today, boy, they're a talented team. I think we're fortunate to make some shots and get up on them a good bit. But they're a good team. I think by no means are we a shoe-in, but I think that we've got the pieces in place to where we feel comfortable that we can compete on a national level.
Talking to Coach Chris Graves here, number 22 Birmingham-Southern men's basketball team. There is probably good speculation you will move up in the top 25. Be honest, how much do you guys pay attention to that kind of stuff?
I think it's really neat for our players. They pay a whole lot of attention to the fact that we get recognized, because coming through the period where we're not eligible to be for postseason play and thus really weren't eligible for the polls, it's important to our kids. Now as a coaching staff, we recognize that the teams that are ranked in January is pretty irrelevant. It's the teams that have a chance down late February that really matter. But we certainly do value being recognized as a program, because that's our goal, is to compete on a national level, and that says that for the time being we're accomplishing that.
Coach Chris Graves joining us here from Birmingham-Southern. Coach, we always give you the final word, the final thought on things. So any final thoughts you want to share with us so far here tonight?
Well, I just appreciate the opportunity to come on and represent our college and our basketball program on your show, and we appreciate everything that you guys do and that D3Hoops.com. Everybody, I know how well you guys get paid for that hard work that you do.
I'm telling you, Coach. I could retire.
But it really does have a tremendous value to our program and to our kids. Our people that support our program really do place a great deal of value in what you guys do. So we appreciate you and appreciate you having me on the show.
Well, thank you for joining us. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you for the kind words. Good luck the rest of the way. Obviously, some tough games ahead of you, and obviously the conference tournament, it seems like a long way off, but I know you're going to be knocking on the doorstep of that thing in any time. But congratulations on a great start to your first head coaching opportunity here at Birmingham-Southern. Good luck to the rest of the Panther team, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
All right, take care. Chris Graves joining us here on Hoopsville. Appreciate him doing that. We're going to take a very quick break. Guess who's going to join us on the air? Rusty Eggen. He's going to join us, talk Northeast. There is a ton to talk about in the Northeast on the men's and women's side. Rusty's the perfect guy to chat with about that. By the way, if you missed any of the show, we will have the show nearly archived immediately right afterward. You can check it out there on Ustream. We'll also send a link via our Hoopsville Twitter page, i.e. follow us at D3Hoopsville. We'll also put up on our Facebook homepage, i.e. follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You can also go #Hoopsville. You can also email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We would love to hear from all of you down the road. And don't forget, Thursday nights, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern, Sunday nights, 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. We hope you will get a chance to listen into the show and listen into coaches and players and administrators, etc. Going to take a very quick break again without commercials. We apologize, but we hope you don't mind. You are listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com. We'll be back right after this. And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. I hope you are doing well. You can join us on the chat room that is there. Not a lot of you there. A little disappointed. Come on, people. Or you can join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville. Join us, or hashtag Hoopsville. Join us on Facebook at D3Hoops, or Facebook.com/Hoopsville. AOLIM is Hoopsville2000, though I just realized for most of the show I didn't have that up and running. I terribly apologize for that. You can also email us at Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at D3Hoops.com. We hope we are getting any emails you may be sending us. We tweaked with the system, and hopefully it's working. Though the fact I haven't been emailed has me a little bit worried. It's just how it works. I want to thank everybody who's joined us on the show so far tonight. And we're about to talk Northeast region here shortly. But again, lots of ways to contact us, and we hope you are taking advantage of that along the way. As my camera clearly needs to be fixed, but we'll get that done sometime in the near future, as it were. That makes that looks a little better. I'm kind of playing with the settings a little bit here. It looks a little better. Yeah, I like that. I look good. Chris Taher, of course, joining us in the background, producer extraordinaire. We see him usually more often, but tonight a little bit hectic. We will get him on the air, folks. Don't worry. He is going to get his FaceTime this year. We're going to go talk Northeast region. And joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is WPI's SID extraordinaire, Rusty Eggen. Rusty, welcome to Hoopsville, sir.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. It's been way too long.
It has been far too long. You are correct, sir. Far, far too long. We're throwing Rusty into the mix here. We're trying some new things this year, and that is rotating guests through from different regions. We'll also mix in coaches, obviously, as well. So far, we've gotten a couple SIDs, and Rusty is one of them. And he certainly knows the Northeast region about as well as anybody else, especially being centered pretty much in the middle of it in Worcester, Mass.
Everything goes through Worcester, yep.
Everything goes through Worcester, unless you're like me, who's gotten tired of the trip up that interstate and decided just to take 495 all the way around. But you didn't hear it from me. Don't worry about it. But I certainly know the area well. Certainly plenty of schools are within a stone's throw from you, so that's why we brought you on to talk a little Northeast region.
Thanks. And, we should certainly start with the NESCAC, where
yeah.
3 of the top 7 teams in the country reside. That probably will not be the case next week, as Williams suffered another home loss this past weekend. But,
exactly. Actually, real quick, Chris, I printed up some stuff on the printer. Do you mind grabbing it for me? Because it's pertinent to this conversation. But you're right. For starters, I think I've had at least 2 NESCAC teams on the men's side as my number 1 votes. Wow, I printed that wrong. And that's certainly in the first couple of weeks. It doesn't happen often. But let's talk about, for starters, the number 1 team in the men's side, and that's Middlebury. 12-0. In other words, they haven't lost anybody. Dismantled Tufts, who dismantled Williams, interestingly enough. From your take, Middlebury and the rest of this NESCAC on the men's side, is it Middlebury's to win, or is it Middlebury just happen to be in a good position right now because there's no double round robin?
The NESCAC, we should start by saying the NESCAC is a unique conference. You mentioned no double round robin. And also, to reduce missed class time, there's a conference that traditionally goes Friday, Saturday. So
right.
Basically, you gear up with a travel partner. I'll use Middlebury as an example. The travel partner would be Williams. And they would go, and in fact, this week it was Bates and Tufts, and those 2 teams come out, and one plays at Williams on Friday, one plays at Middlebury on Saturday, and then they flip-flop. So in a conference like that, it's very tough to win on the road, particularly your Saturday game. You saw Tufts with a very big win at Williams and actually played pretty respectable at Tufts, but at Middlebury. But to win 2 on the road is very difficult, and all teams have to do that 2 or 3 times depending on how
right.
the schedule rotates. So just by looking at it, should be noted with Middlebury's schedule, their trips include this weekend at Conn and at Wesleyan, who had a very impressive win over Trinity on the road on that second day of the Friday, Saturday. And then at the end, they have to go to Trinity and Amherst, playing Amherst on the Saturday date. So the schedule is going to be challenging. And you know what? But it helps when you're already 2-0, and right now it's just them and Amherst at 2-0. It also helps when you probably have the best player in the league.
Yeah, well, doesn't hurt, that's for sure. They got to the Final Four last year, and clearly were the young team there. And I say that only because they were maybe they got outplayed by good teams, but it wasn't anything against them. They just maybe the new experience. from your vantage point, how much does the experience of making a big run in the NCAA tournament actually help you the next year, even if you lose guys?
Oh, it's a tremendous, because you're in a situation where you're going to get everybody's best game once you have that X on your back. Once you're a NESCAC champion, once you're a conference champion, but then you take it up to another level in a team that got to the Final Four. So the group that has returned has that experience to lead on. Plus, I mentioned arguably the best player in the league with very talented players, Ryan Sherry. He goes out and misses the first 5 games of the season. Now, since he's returned, he's been the top scorer of the 6 out of the 7 games he's returned. But this is a team that learned to win without him. And I remember discussing offline with Pat Coleman. I was very impressed because I believe they opened their season at the Ramapo tournament. They had to play a team, Gwinnett Mercy, who's always a good program, and Gwinnett Mercy was a program that got to go away and do their foreign trip, I think, right before the preseason started, and got extra practice time before the season. We took advantage of that last year at AAWPI. We were able to go to Canada during our fall break, which starts right at the beginning of practice, so we were able to practice prior to that. So we had a lot of advantages. And the NESCAC, I don't know if that many people know that, there are some limitations that the NESCAC has. Not a big deal for basketball. They play only 24 games as opposed to 25. Much more noticeable in football, where they only play 8, and sports like soccer and field hockey, where they only play 14. But they can't start practice till November 1st.
Right.
So you have to think right out of the bat, they're playing a pretty good tournament against a team that had extra practice, maybe up to a week and a half, 2 weeks, plus having to play Ramapo the second day against, with their own team missing their best player and, only having maybe 2.5, 3 weeks of practice, and they were able to survive that. Now they got Sherry back, and you know what? They're shooting over 50%, and they're going to be a very tough team to knock off on that number 1 perch.
Yeah, we'll see how Middlebury does the rest of the way. Of course, there's Amherst and there's Williams that everyone talks about. Bowdoin is hanging in there, 9-2, 1-0. Wesleyan 11-3, surprisingly, 1-1 in conference play. And of course, we introduced Hamilton this year, which I'll admit I think is even crazy. 11.
Now, way back in the day, I can remember maybe 10, 12 years ago. I think Jared may have been co-hosting with you back.
He might have been. Yeah.
Hamilton played sort of a split Liberty League. In fact, the Liberty League wasn't even called that. It was called like the Upstate League. They played a split Liberty and a NESCAC, and they used to make, if I remember correctly, and anybody from the NESCAC wants to correct me, they used to make Hamilton have to play Friday, Saturday, so they were always playing against a team that had a bye the night before. And now they've modified the schedule slightly. I don't know if you noticed today. In fact, I think Hamilton beat Colby earlier today. What they'll do is on Friday, Bowdoin and Colby were slated to play Hamilton. Obviously, they have an odd number of teams now, so one of those teams will play Hamilton on Friday, and the other team will play Hamilton Sunday to avoid having to give Hamilton the back-to-back games against a team that wouldn't have to play back-to-back on the second game. So, but yes, sorry, I digress.
No, it's fine. But quickly, let me go back to Wesleyan here. And I know you just said don't throw you any curveballs, but I'm throwing you this one only because it jumps out at me. The Cardinals are not a team we normally talk about, except when talking about the little three, and that's Amherst, Williams, and Wesleyan. They're 11-3. They're 1-1 in conference. Their losses are to Buffalo State, Williams in the little three matchup, and Amherst in conference action. I should point out conference action. They will play Amherst in the little three action later in the season. It's a little quirk in the schedule. They only lose to Amherst on the road by 2. They only lose at Catholic University to Buffalo State by 3. Their loss to Williams is a little bit more glaring, 15 points.
At Williams, much earlier in the season.
Right. Are they really that good?
Well, they have a point guard that's very good, Sasha Brown. Yesterday, I'm very impressed when you can be competitive against Amherst. Amherst is a terrific program. But you know what? Almost equally as impressive is they went out and they beat a pretty good Trinity team that I'll get to see on Wednesday.
Right.
They beat them by 15.
Yeah, they destroyed them today.
Brown, a tremendous point guard, 21 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds yesterday. And Jason Mendel led the way against Amherst, had 16 yesterday against Trinity. I saw them play Framingham State last year and was very impressed with Wesleyan.
And they beat them this year, too, by 12.
Yep, and the coach has, he's been at Wesleyan, Riley, for 5 years maybe. He had come from Bates earlier and, had Bates as a well-respected program. So this is a team that's kind of geared up for a run. And we're going to find out exactly how good they are this week because they get Williams and Middlebury in their own gym.
Yeah.
So this will be a chance for Wesleyan to prove that they deserve to be in with that group. Probably, when you start to slot these teams, you probably are going to think Williams, Amherst, and Middlebury, those top three in some order. And then, you know what, you probably want to avoid having to play one of those three teams in the first round. So there's going to be a lot of competition between Bowdoin, Wesleyan, Tufts, and Trinity more than likely for those 4 or 5 spots. So you don't have to worry about playing a Middlebury, Williams, or Amherst until you get to the semifinals. And NESCAC does one other thing a little bit unique. They play their tournament Saturday, Sunday, the last weekend of the regular season. The
Right.
semis, when everybody else almost plays.
They get a whole 10 days off before they play
Correct. They
NCAA
play-
games.
When everybody's playing their final regular season game,
Right.
they're playing their quarterfinal game.
Yeah.
So that's
NESCAC, gotta love them.
Yeah, hey, they're always keeping things unique, and they're obviously fine academic schools and very quality athletic programs as well. So you really want to who wants to play Middlebury or Amherst right off the bat? Get yourself another week, and try and stay out of that by finishing 4th or 5th.
Wesleyan Cardinals again beat Trinity. Will take on Williams and Middlebury next weekend before taking on Amherst.
Yeah,
We'll see what they're made of in the next 3, won't we?
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting. Having to play those teams. Having to play Amherst and Williams a total of 4 times is not a fun experience.
No. Hey, let's jump to the NUMAC on the men's side. We'll cut to some women's here quickly as we roll along here. Obviously, NUMAC, a conference you know pretty darn well. MIT on top, 14-0, but your WPI Engineers are 11-2 and 2-0 with Springfield kind of behind them. But right now, it looks like it's a 2-horse race between these two.
Yep, those two teams play on January 21st. Both teams have a lot of business to get to until they get to that point. MIT picked up a first-place vote this week, has a plus nearly 26 point per game.
Dominating. Dominating.
Which is just mind-blowing when you think about it. All 5 starters are in double figures. A kid, everybody says he didn't play last year. He did play last year, but only sparingly ended up getting the year back after an injury. That's Noel Hollinsworth. He's obviously their big gun, preseason All-American. He's tremendous. All 5 guys are in double digits. The 2 guys that really stepped up in his absence last year, point guard Mitchell Cates, big man Will Tashman, they're all having great years. They're going to be very, very, very tough to beat. The 2 times they play WPI, they play them on a Saturday at Rockwell Cage in Cambridge, and then they end the regular season. NUMAC is a 7-team league, and they have the final bye on that last Saturday, so they will be at WPI to close out their season on February 15th on a Wednesday. So they've already beaten Springfield, who plays one of the tougher schedules around. They play all those Western Mass NESCAC teams and in Amherst and Williams, and they also play Trinity and just a fine schedule out there. And they were able to beat them, and they got past Wheaton yesterday. So that'll be interesting. WPI remain undefeated by beating Babson with an offensive rebound, a layup, a steal, a layup, and a block 3 at the buzzer, all in the last 10 seconds.
You could tell an SID was covering that.
Oh, holy heck! To go from down 68-66 and to win 70-68. So WPI spent a good portion of the season in the top 25 and lost a pair of non-conference games to some very good Little East Conference teams. I know they're both on my ballot, Rhode Island College. Well, I think is ranked 24th in Western Connecticut, just barely outside the top 25. Lost, I think, by 10 to Rick, 8 to Western Connecticut, but 2 very good Little East Conference teams. And that's a league that really deserves to be watched. Rick, who's actually in the top 25, they're 2-1. They're actually trailing 3 3-0 teams. Western Con, Eastern Con, and Keene State are all 3-0. We'll find out how good Keene State is this week as they welcome West Con and East Con in the reverse order. I think West Con's the midweek game up to Keene, New Hampshire. For Western Connecticut, Mike Enrico and Mason Choice are combining to average 30 points and have led the Anchormen, scoring all 12 games. And I got to mention this guy, Daquan Brooks. He is a senior guard and all-New England kid. He put up 40 on WPI. I'm now entering my 7th year. WPI plays some pretty good defense. First team to break 100 since I've been there, and he had 40 in that game. And, really was able to assault it away from the free throw line. 101-93 back in late December. He's leading the league 23.6 points per game. He is tremendous. Eastern Connecticut has that win over Rhode Island College. Their loss is, I'd have to look to see if it's an out of region. If it's considered out of region, they lost to St. Joseph's of Long Island. I'm not sure if that's a 200-mile.
Hold on.
Probably close. Although those Long Island teams are difficult to get to.
I can get you an answer to that, but you're right. I don't know because of its.
I don't know if they expect you to go through a lake or something like they do out in Michigan.
They don't allow that. So what's the team again?
St. Joe's of Long Island. I know when I was at Fitchburg, we got to play them in the tournament. They're well coached.
Yes, they are.
Good team, and I think that's a Skyline team. It's usually them in Farmingdale, right, out of that group.
St. Joseph's, Long Island. Who's the other team we're talking about here?
Eastern Connecticut, Willimantic.
Connecticut. And the official NCAA mileage chart gives you an answer of 180 miles.
Oh, regional game.
Regional game.
So that's something, it's interesting. I was fortunate enough to serve a small part on the regional committee the last few years, and it's
small part.
It's really
you were on the regional committee. Let's just call a spade a spade.
It's and it's interesting. I mean, that you never know who's going to be out on the table at the same time that you are from another region.
Right.
So that's something that it's a result we could be talking about in March when you're doing your show on Selection Saturday or Manic Monday, whatever it's called.
There is Selection Sunday and Matchup Monday. You're right. Hey, quickly, before we jump to the women, there are so many teams in the Northeast. We're never going to cover them enough. What's one other team that's jumping out at you in the Northeast?
Oh, geez, you had to put me on the spot. I wanted to say NASCAC, all three road teams won the openers on Saturday.
Yeah, well, that's fine. Go that route.
Commonwealth Coast Conference, Salve's the defending tournament champion, and Gordon are the undefeated teams there. That's a unique conference because the defending regular season champ is in the GNAC. That's Anna Maria.
Right.
The GNAC, that's a conference. I'm not sure if they were the NJAC champions both years, but they were from the NJAC, who's a conference I respect tremendously. The GNAC is a conference that has beaten an NJAC team in the tournament the last 2 years. Johnson & Wales last year, and Albertus Magnus the year before beat William Patterson.
Yep.
Ray Askew gets a lot of love up here. Well-deserved, tremendous player, averaging 23.5 a game. But sophomore Darius Williams, he's averaging just under that, 22.8, and he threw up 28 against Becker, so watch for them in the GNAC. The NECC, Becker and Elms are undefeated in conference play. Two tremendously well-coached teams. Brian Gorman and Ed Silva have done great jobs. So until somebody beats one of those two teams, you'd have to consider them the favorite. And the NAC has UMaine Farmington 0-4 out of conference, 6-0 in conference. Colby Sawyer a game behind them. One little note on UMaine Farmington, people forget, they won a tournament game 2 years ago. They went to Bridgewater, who was coming off a Sweet 16 year, in that kind of 8-9 Thursday night game, winner to Williams or somewhere, and I think it ended up being Williams. And UMaine Farmington was able to rally from, I think, a double-digit deficit to come back to win in Bridgewater, which is not easy to do. So those are the two teams, along with Colby Sawyer, to keep looking in that group. So,
by the way, everyone thinks we're getting Tebow-like ratings on the show because you're on.
I wouldn't go that far.
Bill Gorman thinks so.
Well, you know what? Bill would know for sure.
Well, and so does Presto Mike. Hey, let's jump to the women's side. Let's start in the NESCAC as we did on the men's side. Obviously, we're heading into overtime here a little bit. Amherst, who I got to see beat your team, WPI. And I will say this before we go any further. That was a 22-17 game. 8:30 left in the first half.
If I can call one person out here, because he's a good buddy of mine, I'm watching that game remotely, and you're on the play-by-play.
Yes.
And Jim Wagner is on the color.
He
who's
is.
a big WPI supporter. We've crossed paths, and I believe out of his golden voice came "looking good for WPI" at this point.
Boom.
And
that was it.
Yep, that was
it.
That was the kiss of death. Amherst is a tremendous team, but once Wags put the jinx on the Engineers, it was all down.
I don't know if you can blame it on Wags, but it's a good effort nonetheless.
Oh, you know what? You got to try something.
Hey, this is an Amherst
5 run and a 16-0 run to start the half.
18-0 to start that run, and then 35-5, and and it's not like they. Well, I'm not going to go into the game because it's just going to waste our time. But it's a darn good Amherst squad,
and they can beat you in so many different ways.
Yeah. Is there anybody in New England who's going to be able to beat them or play with them? I mean, Tufts 11-2 and 2-0. Colby's 9-1, 1-0. Williams is 12-1, 1-1. But when push comes to shove and they're going to go play GP Gromaki's team, from your point of view, is anyone going to be able to beat them?
I haven't seen a lot outside of conference. I know always obviously the NESCAC deserves a tremendous amount of respect. The Little East is a tremendously deep conference as well, and they are going to have an opportunity to have a lot of teams in the mix. I know WPI also played Rhode Island College, who is also, I believe, 9-2, and along with Western Connecticut, Southern Maine, Eastern Connecticut, and Keene State are teams that can win games if they make the tournament. And I see a team in our conference in the NEWMAC that was almost as equally impressive as Amherst, and that's a team that's had their season end by Amherst the last 3 years, is Judy Bloomstrom's Babson team, who went undefeated in the regular season last year, and will not repeat that this year, as they were beaten up at Williams the second day of a tournament. They beat Tufts on the first day of the tournament, lost to Williams. It was a classic format, and then lost on New Year's Eve. I think they beat one of the Wisconsin teams. I think it was UW Stout, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. They beat them, and then they lost to Southern Maine by 2 in the championship game. That is a team that's got 3 posts that are tremendous. Kathleen King, Sarah Collins, and Nikki Wardeman. I think all 3 are all New England, at least 2 of them. I think Wardeman and King, I think, may be preseason All-Americans. I know Nikki Wardeman is. That's a team that may have a shot, but everybody's got their work cut out for them behind Amherst.
Certainly in that conference, especially if not the entire Northeast. Let's switch to the NEWMAC, the conference you know well, and obviously WPI is in the one struggling this year at 3-10, 1-5, but on top it's Babson, as you previously mentioned, 10-2, 6-0 in conference. Clark is 10-3, 6-0 in conference, and behind them it's 2 all-women's schools, Smith and Wellesley, 9-3 for Smith, 5-6 for Wellesley, but they're both 4-2 in conference.
Yeah, not a big surprise with Smith. Smith upset, I won't even say an upset, beat WPI in the semis last year. WPI had swept them in the regular season and was the number 2 seed, but Smith was playing good basketball at the end of the year. And their lone loss, I believe, is to Springfield in the conference. And I tell you, the pleasant surprise has to be Pat Glisson's group at Clark being 6-0 in the conference, and I believe you said 9-2 overall, maybe
9-3 overall. No, 10-3 overall.
10-3. I know they lost.
Wait, who are we talking? Well, I lost it. Babson or Clark?
Clark.
Yeah, 10-3. Yeah, I'm sorry.
10-3, and so they won 10 out of the last 12. I know they opened short a few people up at the first game of the year against the Fitchburg team, and ended up rattling off 11 impressive wins to start the season. Walter Pascal, who has a 23-game winning streak to his credit from a few years back, was able to start off with 11 in a row to start the season. But Clark's won 10 out of 12 and does have a date with Babson coming up real soon, so we'll find out how good they are.
Outside of these 2 conferences we talked about, who's jumping out at you? Who else did you make note of?
I always look at the Little East. The fact that WPI had some, I saw them in person 2 years ago and on video. Rhode Island College is a team that could jump into that group. Traditionally, it's Eastern Connecticut, Southern Maine, and Western. Some combination of 2, maybe 3 teams makes the NCAA tournament. They'll all be in the mix, and throw in Keene State and Rhode Island College, and you have one heck of a conference out that way. And, of course, the GNAC, you can never count out an Emmanuel team, a well-coached team, and a team that always seems to be there at the end.
Down the road, next couple of weeks, what are the biggest tests? Obviously, we talked about Wesleyan, a surprise team on the men's side. They've got Amherst, Tufts, or Amherst, yeah. Am I right? Amherst, Tufts, and West. No, Amherst, Middlebury, and Williams, not in that order ahead of them. Anything else that jumps out at you?
In that conference, you know what? I really want to see what Bowdoin has. That's a team that is a game behind, so to speak, because they are they played Hamilton this week. They ventured to Tufts and Bates in their travel weekend again this weekend. So if they can survive those 2 games, which will not be easy, obviously, as Tufts proved going to Williams and winning at Williams. They only have 2 road games the rest of the way, as their travel partner game against Colby is home, and they'll have 2 other home doubleheaders. So if they can somehow sneak to 3-0, they got 5 out of the last 7 at home, and you never know.
Do I dare ask if you're the one who are voting MIT number one?
You may ask, and
You won't
I've
answer.
given them, no, I will answer. I've given them strong consideration, but I've seen nothing. I'm proud to announce the team that I had voted number one in the preseason is still my number one team in Middlebury.
Oh, you're killing me.
So I have no.
I've only had 5 of them so far.
Hey, you know what? You could just get it right from the beginning, I guess.
I guess. Apparently, I couldn't.
But you know what? I've taken a look and would consider MIT in there if Middlebury had done anything not to deserve that number one vote.
Yeah,
and I haven't been able to find anything yet to.
No, it's no big deal. It's just been the chat of the chat board that somebody switched from Middlebury to WPI. All right, to MIT.
I did see that they both had a common opponent. Who was,
a couple of common opponents. Salem State being one of them.
Well, yeah, and Salem State maybe the most notable one has had WPI played them right after the Williams game. Maybe they were 3-0 and got behind 12 and ended up winning by double figures. But very impressed with Salem State. And then they went out and got beat last night by Westfield. So I hope everything is okay out in Salem because I think they're now 7-7. Very talented team, well coached. Chris already does a good job. And that common result that I was mentioning is Middlebury squeaked by them. Might be the word.
Yeah.
In their holiday tournament, and MIT had a little easier time.
Just a little bit
in December. So maybe that was the reason for the vote. And there's some voters that have a fresh take every week on their poll, and that's a healthy thing. That's the thing I learned from. I've done 2 different tours on the regional committee, and I think it's very important to know on that group for somebody that for people that want to know how that works. You have a fresh slate every week. These numbers, the numbers that and the criteria that you're looking at, those numbers can evolve a lot over one particular week, especially with the strength of schedule piece. And it's a clean slate, and we must have a top 25 voter that wanted to look at that, and hats off to that person.
Good luck, by the way. Bill Gorman's not too happy with you right now. Don't know why.
I'm used to people not being happy with me. So.
I'm just kidding with you. It's just some tweet. Hey, I appreciate you joining us here on Hoopsville. Hopefully we'll get to hear from you down the road in the future as well and get your take. Any final thoughts?
No, you know what? I like being at the bottom of the order today. You had some great guests, and it was really great to have Dan on from the NCAA to really give that perspective. So congratulations for him and for you landing that interview, and thanks to him for coming on to give a voice from the NCAA. A lot of people don't get to hear that voice, and we're all members of the NCAA. That's what people forget a lot of times.
Absolutely. Well put, well said, and thank you very much for joining us, and we'll talk to you soon. Obviously, I'll be picking your brain quite often.
Hey, Dave, thanks, and again, we love the show, and thanks for everything that you guys are able to do.
Thanks, Rusty, and I was glad I actually got to see your team play, though, despite it all. It was fun to watch them in Vegas.
Thanks, and hopefully we can cross paths soon.
Definitely. Take care of yourself.
Hey, see you, Dave.
All right, take care. Rusty Eggen, WPISID, and now new regional host, or one of the regional reporters we'll have here on D3Hoops.com. Chris, I'm going to throw you in here on the board here as we join in. See, new camera for Chris. Don't look back there. You can look right through the camera. You look marvelous. I'm sure you're monitoring the broadcast anyway. So there's Chris, and there I am, and we'll get him on the air next week for sure. Get his School of the Week. We don't know who that is just yet. Got a list I'm working on here. We'll get School of the Week and anything else. Chris, anything you want to add to the show before we sign off the wonderful air here tonight? He's got to reach for the panel. I'm so fair, aren't I?
Yeah,
get the mic close to you. Get the mic close. There you go.
Good?
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, nothing from me. Just looking forward to Thursday's show, School of the Week. Have 5 questions. See if they can beat whoever the coach is. Can beat 4 or 5, which is the lead right now.
How about 4 out of 5 to start the?
Not bad to start. So maybe we'll make it a little tougher this time.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to ratchet it up just a little bit, I think.
We'll do. But yeah, that's it for me. Looking forward to some more D3 basketball. Another good week.
Definitely. All right, my man. Well, thank you very much for your hard work. Chris Taher joining us here, as you can see over my right shoulder as well. When we come back on Thursday, we'll have more from the Mid-Atlantic, the East, the South, and the Great Lakes regions, along with our School of the Week. and so on and so forth. If you have any questions for us during the off time or during the shows, email us at hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That is hoopsville@d3hoops.com. Our AOL-IM is during the show is Hoopsville 2000. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville or join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville.com or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on our website, d3hoopsville.com. That is d3hoopsville.com. And want to thank Ustream, as always, for helping us broadcast the show. Thanks to all our guests, Deena Applebury from Mary Washington, Grey Giovanine from Augustana, Rusty Eggen from the Northeast, and, of course, I just forgot somebody. Hold on.
Chris Graves.
Yes, Chris Graves from Birmingham-Southern, and, of course, Dan Dutcher, Vice President for Division III from the NCAA. Appreciate them all joining us, along with Pat Coleman, who started off the show as well. Thank you for joining us here on Hoopsville. We're going to sign off for the night. Join us back on Thursday. Don't forget, if you missed any of it, archives will be available in a matter of minutes. Thanks, everybody, and have a good evening. We'll see you back here on Thursday night.